Hello everyone, this is Darion of GNB Productions, and today we'll be taking a look at Amazon Prime's Hazbin Hotel. Hazbin Hotel released in January of 2024. The story revolves around the Princess of Hell, Charlie Morningstar, as we follow her attempts to fight against Heaven's yearly extermination of demons by rehabilitating sinners in her brand new Hazbin Hotel, a place to reform the sinners of Hell and get them a one-way ticket to heaven. After 4 long years since the original pilot was released on YouTube, Hazbin is finally here. I became a fan of Hazbin as well as Vivziepop and the Helliverse as a whole since the original pilot. I have been waiting ages for this show to come out, and before I really get into it, I have to say just how proud I am of Vivzi, as well as the rest of the Hazbin team for making the show become a reality. My thoughts on the show will be a little all over the place, but I just want to reiterate that I am so proud of where everyone on the crew managed to make this happen. It is truly remarkable. The story and basic premise of Hazbin is certainly interesting, I'll give it that. But the way the writers choose to go about executing some of its plot points leaves a lot to be desired. First things first, the pilot. Normally when it comes to pilots for TV shows, they're more often than not meant to purely be a proof of concept for how the show is meant to play out. But Vivian's approach to the pilots of both Hazbin and Hell of a Boss kinda don't follow that formula. Now while you don't necessarily need to watch these pilots to understand the contents of these shows, they are almost required to put a lot of story beats in proper context. This is more of a case with Hazbin than it is Hell of a Boss, however. Whether it comes to character motivations, the basic premise of the whole show, the overall cast roles and dynamics with one another, etc. The problem with that is that it almost falls on the viewer to go out and view the pilot to catch some of this stuff and have it be better contextualized. And in my opinion, that kinda sucks. The first episode, Overture, doesn't really feel like a proper episode 1 and more like an epilogue of where the pilot leaves off. And whether that was intentional or not, I don't think that was the best approach to take with your big premiere episode. Not to mention stuff like Alistair making a deal with Charlie is more impactful having the context of him trying to do it when they first met. Angel Dust and Sir Pentious' connection to Cherry Bomb is better contextualized with the pilot in mind. Charlie pitching her hotel with Song and failing, only for her to find success with the cannibals. Alistair and Charlie's supposed bond they've grown throughout the season, and general stuff like that which just kinda bothers me. Something that many folks, including myself, have noticed in regards to this show's writing is its god-awful pacing. This show, episode by episode, is moving a mile a minute, and the overall narrative really suffers because of it. See, the thing is, when dealing with Amazon Prime, they were likely limited to telling an 8-episode story, as that's likely the amount of episodes that were ordered. People try to use this as an excuse for the poor pacing, but I'm sorry, just because we know why things are shit, doesn't make it any less shit. Now, I am exaggerating a tad, but the point I'm trying to make here is that, yeah, they ordered about 8 episodes, and the story is suffering because of that. I swear, this show needed at least 4 to 5 additional episodes to give more breathing room for the plot and the characters to progress and flow naturally. Like, the entire first season takes place over the course of 6 months, and it's really something that the show just tells you, and you're just gonna have to go along with. Which is another issue I'll get into shortly. But yeah, going from episode to episode, you really don't get the sense that much time is passing. You'll deadass just have to take the show's word for it. Storylines and plot points quickly get introduced and end with very little fanfare. An angel was found dead in episode 1, and it's meant to be this mystery of who killed it and how. 2 episodes later, we get introduced to this new character, Carmilla Carmine, where it's revealed that she was the one who killed the angel to protect her daughters. This character we literally just got introduced to and has this big breakout and emotional song, and I just feel a little meh about it all. Vaggie, Charlie's girlfriend, gets revealed to have been an angel all along and has been keeping it from Charlie. Vaggie's story is something I have a whole bunch of problems with, but for now I'm going to just focus on the fact that this big reveal was given to one of the least and poorly developed characters in our main cast in this episode, and is revealed to Charlie at the end of said episode, and you know the following 2 episodes are going to be jam-packed with plot, and given the show's track record so far, you know this isn't going to be given a proper amount of time to resolve itself, so all is forgiven by the end of the next episode, which to me just kinda sucks. Going further with the whole thing regarding the pace of the season, this show also has a severe show don't tell issue. For the people that don't know, for visual media like TV, movies, etc., there's this unwritten rule called show don't tell. It's a visual medium, so if you're going to have important elements of your story, you have to show us and not tell us. Like in episode 6, I believe, Charlie and Husk make several comments on Angel Dust's supposed progress to recovery and redemption. Keep in mind that it was only episode 4 where Angel started opening up about his problems. He doesn't have any strong presence in episode 5, other than Charlie and Vaggie making a comment about almost finding all of his drug stashes. Keyword being almost. So when we get to episode 6 and they say shit about him making progress, I'm just sitting here like, what progress? You're really just telling me these things are going on and not really showing me any of it. This issue goes even further when we get to what this show is about. The hotel itself. Something weird about Hazbin and Helva, and this is mainly a personal issue for me, is that both shows have the same problem in that the base premise that was given to us in the pilots for both shows are either very short-lived or feels like an afterthought. Now, this is quite normal. Not everything a pilot showcases will be carried over 100% of the time, and that's fine. But the case with both of Vivian's shows is that the premise that was pitched doesn't feel like they were given proper amount of story dedication before we get into the real meat of the narrative. The show of Hazbin centers around redemption, but the only real steps characters are shown to take towards redemption are so basic and uninteresting that it feels like the writers just kinda don't care about it compared to a lot of the other stuff the show wants to offer. Like, for example, the pilot of Adventure Time basically just pitched the show as a wacky and silly, goofy Saturday morning cartoon. And when the show premiered, that's pretty much what we got, and it was fun. But as the show went on, we got more and more into the serious and dark stories the writers wanted to tackle, and it was cool. I feel like an approach similar, not exactly the same, but similar to that would have done this show wonders, as it keeps the basic premise there, while devoting actual time to flesh out the world and its characters. Because, spoilers, I guess, the last thing we see from the season is that the character of Serpentius, after his sacrifice in the final battle, makes it into heaven. Now, while I did like this for his character, I don't think this was as earned as the writers had hoped it'd be. Because almost no time was truly dedicated to Pentius's redemption, and it really didn't land that strongly for me. I feel like the writers also tend to forget that while the premise is to rehabilitate the sinners, this is still hell. These folks did some fucked up shit that got them sent here for a reason, and not focusing on that why and still trying to redeem them is a bit odd to me. This slightly harkens back to the whole show don't tell issue, because Charlie and by proxy the writers swear up and down that the sinners don't deserve the fate of being exterminated once a year, but don't do a proper job at showing us why. All we see of the average sinner in hell is just them being assholes, and the show doesn't do that great of a job at showing us why they don't deserve their fate. Like, why did Serpentius get sent to hell in the first place? I'm sure there's info on Fandom Wiki and shit like that, but y'all know how I feel about info that isn't properly alluded or expressed within a piece of material, so I ain't gonna repeat myself. I feel like aiming to redeem sinners, we gotta analyze what got them sent there in the first place, because it'd be more interesting, I feel, and to me, make their redemption feel a bit more gratifying. The characters in Hazbin are definitely a highlight. Story writing may not be the writer's strong suit, but character writing definitely is. Sometimes. The flaws in the character writing again derive from the rushed storytelling, but nevertheless, the characters and their chemistry with one another carry this show significantly. That normally wouldn't be such a big deal, but what I mainly mean is that due to the pretty meh story, the characters do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the enjoyment of this series, and it wouldn't be anywhere near as enjoyable without them. To start off with our main character, Charlie. In a world where the overly optimistic and cheery and sunny and naive character has been a little done to death, and my stance on these characters is starting to wafer out a bit, recent stuff like Luz and the Owl House managed to turn around and become pretty interesting as the series went on, less one note. Now I absolutely love her. The same goes for Charlie as well. It's just hard not to like her. She's fucking adorable. She's still not that unique when it comes to this style of protagonist, but she's far from being annoying. She's well-meaning, cares deeply for her loved ones, and her ambitions are noble and altruistic in nature, all the makings of a pretty decent protagonist. Her story throughout the season is fine. It's not anything spectacular or bad either, just a little meh. Her growing into her leadership capabilities by the end of the season was pretty cool, and is a far cry from how she was at the beginning of the story. And her going against the corrupt nature of Heaven's rules is pretty cool. I don't know, maybe it's due to the story structure, but Charlie's story throughout season 1 isn't anything to write home about, honestly. Everything I said about this variation of protagonist still reigns a bit true, but the story doesn't give Charlie enough personal growth for me to find interesting. Her reconciliation with her dad, trust me, I'll get into him in just a bit, wasn't particularly earned. Her as a character I am quite fond of, but it's her journey throughout this season I find to be a little, Vaggie? Holy shit, this character was done so fucking dirty by the writers. Vaggie is a character I wanted to love so much, but just wound up slightly liking. She has almost no interesting character outside of her relationship with Charlie. And on the topic of their relationship as a whole, all I'm gonna say is they ain't beating the unseasoned white chicken allegations for me. Yeah, that reprisal of More Than Anything was cute as fuck, but that doesn't make up for a full season of mid when it comes to these two. Anyway, yeah, Vaggie's story and character throughout this season really could have been handled significantly better. As I said, she barely has any interesting character or story outside of her relationship with Charlie. Her first big breakout moment is her singing about how she's Charlie's armor, and moments earlier thinks that if she can't protect or be there for her, then there's no reason for her existing. But instead of trying to deconstruct these things, they just run with it, making her character seem a bit hollow. And in regards to her being an angel thing, yeah, I thought that was a pretty good twist. I hadn't even thought about it till the fandom started being extremely vocal about the theory, but this little story beat isn't really given the proper amount of time to be fleshed out. Charlie is a bit more dismissive and aggressive towards her after finding out, but eventually she comes around to forgiving her thanks to a talk with Rosie, who we absolutely love and adore. Rosie is a fucking queen. But her and Vaggie don't really get a scene together to go over the whole ordeal, which to me kinda sucks. And the next big moment for Vaggie is Carmilla singing to her about needing to fight for love instead of vengeance in regards to the extermination coming within a month. Even though Vaggie up to this point hasn't shown much bloodlust, and every single decision she's made has been about and for Charlie. I don't know, it just sucks how little of an identity she has. Angel Dust I absolutely adored. His over-the-top antics I get won't be everyone's cup of tea, but I absolutely love it. And how it plays into his overall story I found to be genuinely brilliant. He puts on this bravado of him being overtly sexual to mask the pain of the abuse he suffers from his boss, Valentino. I know Angel's story, and specifically the whole poison sequence, has had a bit of controversy in how it depicts victims of SA, and how it quote-unquote glorifies it, and I just personally don't see it. Nothing about the sequence or even the lyrics of the song depict the things Angel is going through in a positive light. I myself am not a victim of SA, so maybe I don't have a dog in this race on how it's depicted in certain media, but that sequence was genuinely one of the most uncomfortable and gut-wrenching scenes I've seen in a while from a TV show. Anyway, Angel as a character throughout this season was great, and watching him slowly improve himself, even though most of the development was off screen, was pretty neat, as well as watching him grow closer to the others in the hotel. Characters like Husk, Nifty, and Serpentius were all just okay. The bond Angel and Husk grow is absolutely adorable, especially seeing where they first started out. I can't get enough of it. Husk as a character didn't get that much time to shine, but that's honestly fine by me. His character as of now isn't begging to be that deeply explored. Something I do find interesting is him being an overlord. That I think would be interesting to dive into more. Nifty is just this freakish little gremlin that you can't get enough of. Seriously, she's just a fucking blast. Serpentius is the main comic relief for the show, and yeah, he's a lot of fun.
I'm sorry, why would we have sex?
Because I'm having sex with everyone here!
Okay, I gotta get this off my chest real quick. Having a joke like this just 2 whole episodes after going over Angel Dust's backstory, you know, the one that's going through severe physical and sexual abuse, feels a bit tone deaf, I'm not gonna lie. If you found this joke funny, I don't mean to take that away from you, as I laughed when I first watched it too. But let's not sit here and pretend like this isn't what we all think it is, okay? Alright, let's talk about Alistair. By far my favorite character in the show, and if I'm being honest, my main draw for continuing to watch. Alistair as a character is a giant enigma throughout the entirety of the show thus far, and is the only really interesting mystery the show has going for it so far, if I'm being honest. His shady nature, his chilling demeanor, the iconic grin, his charisma and charm, he easily chews up any scene he's featured in. Alistair's placement in the overall cast is super interesting because while he's helping out, you as an audience member and even members of the main cast know it's only a matter of time before he starts putting his own plans into motion. He's helping out for now, and I don't know why, but I just adore the hell out of this type of character. The mysteries behind Alistair, and yes, there are several, are so intriguing that I'm worried the writers may be overhyping it a tad. There's the mystery of how he became so powerful in the first place. Then there's the mystery of the supposed leash he's on. And by the end of the season, due to his near death experience, he's shown to be plotting something. I just hope they manage to pull this off as he has so much potential as a future villain. A missed opportunity for his character would be the writer's poor development of his relationship with Charlie. This is again another element of the story being rushed, but Alistair, in a bit of a feud with Charlie's dad, Lucifer, makes comments on him and Charlie growing a bond over the course of the show, and how he views her as a daughter of sorts. Now, he's clearly talking shit just to piss off Lucifer, but I feel like this would have been more thematically impactful had we, you know, seen these two interact at all outside of the first episode. This gets mentioned in episode 5, and these two don't share a single sentence with one another outside of the first episode up to this point, which is kinda lame. Overall, Alistair is a terrifying, charming, and lovable addition to the overall cast, and I can't imagine this show being as enjoyable for me without him. Here's hoping they execute his story well in Season 2. Those are the main stars out of the way. How about our supporting cast? A lot of these guys I don't have much to say about, so forgive me if this feels like I'm blazing through some of these. First off, the V's. They're fine. As antagonists, they work fairly well. Vox and Alistair's rivalry is really fun. The whole radio versus television motif is something I find to be very cute. Valentino is one of those villains you love to hate. The way he treats Angel is sure to get the blood boiling, but I don't know, maybe it's the voice they give him to where you can't get enough of seeing him when he's on screen. Or maybe it's just a me thing. Velvet unfortunately doesn't have too much of a leg to stand on. With both Vox and Valentino having their situations with Angel and Alistair respectively, it leaves Velvet with nothing much to do. In the big final song of the show, teasing the three becoming major antagonists of the next season, Velvet doesn't do or say jack shit throughout the entire sequence, which kind of friggin' sucks if you ask me. Especially seeing as she had one of my favorite songs in the season. Adam is fine. Adam being a massive asshole is a kind of fun idea, but the way the writers went about it leaves me feeling a bit meh. People have been vocal about, for lack of a better term, Vivian's sort of juvenile style of writing when it comes to her two shows. While this stuff doesn't bother me per se, I can see why people think having characters say excessively vulgar stuff so consistently may be a bit much. Adam is no better example because, yeah, while I think he's a fun character, his whole shtick kinda gets tiresome after a while. There's a scene where Charlie swears and we have a bunch of the angels look offended and shit, acting like Adam wasn't swearing his balls off literal seconds ago. Maybe that was intentional, but I don't know, it just felt a little weird. Anyway, Adam was a pretty fun character, and his dynamic with Lute was great too. Going further with that, the other angels, or specifically Sarah and Emily. My stance on these characters is entirely based on how the story chooses to use them, because for the brief, and I mean very brief time they have in the show, being one episode so far, they feel like they're supposed to be way more important than they actually are. Emily finding out about the exterminations and that Sarah knew and allowed them, and feeling betrayed, felt like a bit of a hollow point in the overall conflict. Because we just got introduced to these characters and didn't even spend that much time with them, the two being at odds over this just doesn't do much for me. It doesn't help the fact that Emily in particular so far doesn't have that interesting of a character outside of just being another Charlie, basically. Okay, let's talk about Lucifer, because I have quite a bit to say about this show's portrayal of him. From the pilot, you would get the impression that he's a very standoffish and asshole kind of dad. Being the literal king of hell, that's kind of the thing you'd expect from this type of character. Now, like I mentioned earlier, not everything in a pilot will be consistently reflected in the official material. Them choosing to make Lucifer this super fun, awkward, and chill guy wouldn't be a problem for me if it wasn't for the fact that they kept trying to portray him as this super standoffish and aloof asshole parent.
What's the holdup? You got daddy issues?
No, we just have never been close.
After he and Mom split, he never really wanted to see me. He calls sometimes, but only if he's bored or like needs me to do something.
Daddy issues.
But when we actually see the dude, he's nervous and shit and is actually super excited to be around his daughter.
Wait, you're inviting me over? Absolutely! Oh, I'll be there in an hour. My daughter wants to see me. Take that, depression!
Like, pick one or the other. You can't have both. It just leaves a lot of the stuff surrounding Charlie and Lucifer's relationship feeling super conflicting. Their reconciling was cute, but wasn't really earned because their problems weren't properly explored, and once again reached a bit of a rushed resolution. Like, they make comments on wanting to be around each other, but the show doesn't make it clear what exactly kept them apart in the first place. It doesn't even feel like a mystery for the next few seasons, it literally just feels like a forgotten element of the story. The characters in this show and their journeys, while not perfect, are pretty fun, and are a big saving grace for the whole thing so far. The voice acting in this show is absolutely phenomenal. This cast did an absolutely amazing job. Erica Henningsen as Charlie, Keith David as Husk, Blake Roman as Angel Dust, Amir Talai, hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right, as Alistair are the big standouts for me. As well as Alex Bryman playing both Serpentius and Adam. He was amazing. When the trailer first dropped and we heard a bit of Alistair's voice, I was a little peeved that he didn't have the consistent over-the-top radio filter over his voice like in the pilot. Only to watch the show and see that his radio voice filters in and out depending on the scenario, which makes for a much more interesting effect, I'd say. Blake Roman does a scary good job at imitating the original voice for Angel in the pilot. It's noticeable that it is a different voice, but regardless, it works so damn well. Erica sounds almost identical to Charlie's pilot VA, which is pretty cool. Keith David, no matter what he's in, is always going to pull an outstanding performance in my eyes, and that's no different for Husk. I will say that when they casted Keith, I wish they gave Husk a bit of an updated look to better suit the voice. Because it's not like it doesn't fit at all, but it does slightly take me out looking at this slim little figure and hearing the deep barreling voice of Keith David. Some voices I just think I need more time to get used to. I don't think the British accent fits Cherry Bomb particularly well, but that's just me. And I'm also not super big on the inconsistency when it comes to Valentino's accent, but overall, the voice cast is absolutely amazing. If you already couldn't tell based on me mentioning it numerous times throughout the video, this show features quite a few songs and musical numbers. That is because this show is in fact a musical. And I don't say that lightly, this is a musical. As someone who is quite fond of musicals, you will be delighted to hear that throughout the 8 episodes this season offers, and out of the, I believe, 16 songs that are featured, not one of them sucks. Like seriously, this show has yet to miss when it comes to its songs. Some are clearly better than others, but when a problem with my least favorite song is that for the most part it feels a bit too Disney-like, I feel like we hit a bit of a home run when it comes to the rest of the music. The beauty of this cast is really shown by the songs, as yes, not only are these guys great voice talents, they are also Broadway stars, and their expertise is greatly showcased in this show. The duet between Alistair and Vox in Stayed Gone has yet to leave my head. The beginning shows Vox in a boastful promise to Alistair that he's not hot shit anymore, only for Alistair at the end to flip the lyrics on his head, and it's so fucking good. Blake Roman during the poison sequence was absolutely phenomenal. You can really feel the pain this character is going through by the end. In contrast, Loser Baby is fucking amazing. You can't go wrong with a Keith David song, and he and Blake's harmonizing was absolutely beautiful. More than anything, while being pretty meh thematically, was an absolutely beautiful song nonetheless. Jeremy Jordan fucking killed it as Lucifer. Hell's Greatest Dad was just fast-paced and hectic goodness. Respectless was such a fucking bop. Out for Love was simply iconic. Hell is Forever rocked so damn hard, and The Show Must Go On was an amazing closer to the season. You get it. The music is great. Something else I want to discuss is this show's absolutely amazing reprisals. This show loves to do reprisals of previous songs, and they're always so fucking good for no reason. Episode 6's reprisal of Hell is Forever goes ridiculously hard. The reprise of Happy Day in Hell and The Show Must Go On was fucking brilliant. And the reprise of More Than Anything with Charlie and Vaggie was absolutely adorable. The music in the show is just great. That can also be said for the animation. I can understand this particular art style not being everyone's cup of tea, but I can't help but love the aesthetic Vivian has created for the Helliverse. The kind of abstract and edgy and jagged, almost deviant art style look is genuinely great. A minor nitpick I have is how, since we're mainly relegated to Hell, or specifically the Pride Ring of Hell, where everything is a gloomy red, it doesn't provide that much interesting iconography and makes everything blend together a bit too much for my liking, but otherwise, it looks pretty cool. The fight scenes, while there aren't that many, are pretty damn cool as well. Mainly in the finale with the war against the Angel Exorcists, the duel between Alistair and Adam was so goddamn cool. Adam catching him off guard and forcing him to drop the radio voice was the textbook definition of an oh shit moment.
This radio is fucking dead!
What just happened? Fuck.
As well as the visuals that accompany the various songs and such. This show is just simply stunning. Overall, Hazbin Hotel as a series is a bit complicated. I can't bring myself to say it's a bad show, but it's by no means a perfect one. The overall story is significantly rushed, and that leads to a lot of its ideas not being as fleshed out as I think the writers intended. The characters, while enjoyable, aren't perfect, as certain story beats with them, again, aren't given a proper amount of time to be fleshed out. The show also suffers from a severe presentation issue, with the whole show don't tell problem I discussed earlier being the biggest example of such. However, on the opposite end of that spectrum, the characters are fun to watch, the animation and overall art style is great, the voice acting and music are all phenomenal, and as a whole, it was just a fun watch. For all my problems, I won't sit here and say I didn't thoroughly enjoy myself because I clearly did. My official stance on Hazbin Season 1 is that it's fun, but really complicated. Given that the voice recordings for Season 2 is already underway, that likely means the script for the whole season is likely already complete, which is kinda worrisome for me, as if that's the case, that means they likely won't be able to take into account the audience's criticisms to hopefully improve the quality of the show. But we'll just have to wait and see on that end. So, with all that said, if you agree or disagree with anything I've said in this video, let me know right down there in the comments below. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. This is Darion of GNB Productions, and take care.